Salute, Omnes, I am Ruminous, and today we are doing a review for Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped. It starts off with a little more story than the other ones, where an evil mask is helping Cortex go through time to make him the infinite ruler. This lets the developers have an excuse for making the player go through the dinosaur times, and also the Jetsons times as well. The goal in this game is to collect pretty crystals and gems at the demise of the race of boxes. It is a cruel and hard sacrifice, but a necessary one. The time to beat 100% on an original playthrough should be about 6 to 8 hours. This game has upgrades and power-ups to make the game a little bit easier, but there are also time trials that have to be beaten to get to extra levels. Crash 3 is very consistent with responding to the controller. The double jump is very obnoxious as it does not respond unless you do it immediately, and the bazooka often doesn't register, but all the other commands will work unless you fall to your death. Obviously, the game sucks at that point. The player can repeat actions immediately, yet the player cannot cancel most actions, although they take a second or so to complete. When dying, Crash responds immediately, and there are enough checkpoints to make retrying quick, especially when the stupid shark camps you in the seaweed. There is no planned latency except for the body slam and bazooka for whatever reason. The bazooka is a giant waste of time anyway, so it's not actually a big deal. When Crash greets the pterodactyls, they take him to their nest immediately for love, care, and support. What nice birds. Since it's a platformer, these actions happen all the time. The run, jump, and spin moves are the most common, and there are sporadic needs for the double jump, super spin, bazooka, and body slam actions. Like in 1 and 2, the slide, jump, spin, and run commands are exceedingly useful, especially so in the remakes as the jumps are trolls and will often just be too far away for a regular jump. The bazooka and slam moves are useless. They are relegated to gimmicks, and the planned latency when using or recovering from them is useless compared to just bopping things with your feet. The game gives full control to the player, where the player can choose the levels at their own pace, replay them however they want, and skip immediately the few cutscenes that happen. When beating all 5 levels in a section, it will require the player to play the boss stage, which can be annoying when going for time trials or gems immediately in that section. Crash moves fast enough to beat most levels in about 2 minutes or so, but never fast enough to make it over this tiny pit. Thank you, Crash, you dumb spinny boy. Crash can change his momentum in the air or water immediately, as if Newton's laws of motions didn't exist. He moves fast enough to match the pace of enemies and hazards, giving the player enough time to react. Hopefully, at least. The view is third person with the camera perpetually in the center behind the character. The camera keeps pace, and the view is wide enough to see all the scheming boxes in the nearby distance. Some boxes will try to hide behind Crash, which is hard to see, but this is an intentional design by the developers to try and harbor the cubes from my Wrath Vortex. The game grows in complexity at times, but really never enough to not feel like playing older levels again with slight variations. There may be new enemies or more endless abysses, but never so much that they are unique. The bonus rounds are almost all straightforward, unlike the old games where it made you use tactics to not fall to your demise or lock out some boxes. There are plenty of differently themed and gimmick levels to add some variety though. The game flows linearly, although the constant changes in the gameplay for the ski, motorcycle, airplane, and underwater levels can be jarring. The underwater and airplane levels are not actually platformers, but that could be a good break for the player if these levels weren't so stringent on the turning radius. I can't do anything with the stupid bike. The game is actually quite easy. Most enemies just pace about, even in the later levels, whereas in Crash 2 they tracked you down and chased you. The platforming is never too complex, and the upgrades are only relegated to the bonus areas where they allowed such promise for adding platformer rage to the later levels. The extra level in the remake, Future Tense, actually makes use of the upgrades, has conveyor belts in all sorts of directions, and plenty of moving enemies, which the original game should have had. Although fun, Crash 3 is nowhere near hard. The shift in gameplay and environments is enough to sustain the interest of the average gamer. The difficulty may bore some hardcore platformers, but Crash 3 is goofy and fun, which is what made it a staple in the early PlayStation days. The story for the game tries to add a bit more with Sith Mask and Coco now being involved in the Box Genocide, but it's all the same. Cortex is a jerk and must be pummeled. It doesn't do anything the previous games hadn't. The music, like the others, is magnificent. The music has some relevance to the theme of the level, but is catchy and relaxing to help prevent the player from biting their controller as Gandalf tries to murder you for no reason. I don't have the ring, man, leave me alone! The sounds and effects are likewise goofy and exaggerated, but unique to know what enemies are nearby, and to help confirm that it did indeed slam that box into oblivion. The game's mechanics are consistent and reliable. Every section will have 5 levels, 2 of the 5 will not be traditional platformers, and there is a short boss fight at the end of the section. All levels will have gems and crystals, but about 3 out of 5 will have alternate paths or colored gems as well. The biggest manipulative is the metal crates that unlock other boxes, otherwise the game doesn't use or need manipulatives. Some others may be nice, but unnecessary for this game. I do think the games could benefit from adding more enemies or pits if the player is rampaging through the game to help with the difficulty problem. Like the others in the series, the assistives in this game are the game giving masks or checkpoints if the player is hot garbage and doesn't make any progress for a bit. The masks are useless in the levels with lots of pits, and there's nothing to help with the motorcycle levels. There are speed pads, but those are required anyway to get first place. There could have been a few more assistives, but the game works fine with what is there. The detrimentals match the rest of the trilogy. Enemies have contact damage, some enemies can only be killed with a certain action, and later levels will have more hazards or impediments. The game is fairly linear with clear paths, but it does have some guiding elements by showing the collectibles in the preview for each stage, good sound design to make enemies known even when off screen, and a large enough view when the dinosaurs are about to stampede crash. The remake tells the base controls immediately, and getting a power-up will have direct text to explain what it is, but most other aspects of the game are intuitive. The player should not run into glowing red lasers, the monkeys are unarmored at their feet, and the open windows with burn marks on the ground below are suspicious. Because Cortex goes back in time to change things, everything is thematic. Except for Cortez going back to never make Crash, or to change his mind about the mind control thing. As to why villains never use time travel to stop the hero before he becomes a hero is beyond me. The tutorial levels are simple and well made. There are enemies and pits to show how death happens, all the boxes are in clear view and ripe for murder, and there are boxes for 3 masks, checkpoints, and extra lives. The base functions of the game are shown, and the initial levels for the non-strictly platformers are again slow and open enough to learn the rules of each type of level. The UI and UX are well made. The menu is short, sweet, and logical with a large overview for the total collected gems throughout the game. There is enough empty space that the view is not cramped, and the items per level are hidden unless the player requests to see how many more boxes need to be killed on this mission. The enemies are typically moving and contracted in color against the ground, and nothing is even close to being orange that would make the player lose sight of Crash. The background, foreground, hazards, and set pieces are all easily distinguished. The style fits the theme and setting. Nothing makes sense, and let's get wild with it. Although everything is realistic, there's often exaggerated proportions, sizes, or details to make things humorous. The graphics in the remake are very good, and even in the original are decent to today. There is enough detail in all the items to tell everything apart and see what will kill Crash in the distance. The animations are extreme and cartoonish, but fit with the style and setting of the game. It is easy to tell the motion, direction, and telegraph of the enemies, hazards, and character to be able to react appropriately. Crash 3 is actually less accessible than the other entries simply because it changes the format of the levels so often. Although that can help players reduce stress, it can also cause issues for anybody who has difficulties in reactions or stress under time constraints for the motorcycle levels. The airplane levels, although short, can be an issue for similar reasons, along with needed to press multiple buttons at once constantly, causing an issue for smaller hands and anybody with joint issues. Where most levels allow the player to stand in the distance in peace, these levels, the time trials, and the airplane levels can be an issue. The text is orange with a black background with a decent enough size and bubbly font to help make it legible, although the pause menu's text is small and cannot be changed. The game is not bad with accessibility, but it could have a few options to help with some impairments. For a final score, I give the gameplay control a 49 out of 60, gameplay aspects 51 out of 60, story 3 out of 5, sound 10 out of 10, mechanics 65 out of 70, tutorial 10 out of 10, UI UX 10 out of 10, visuals 20 out of 20, and accessibility 2 out of 5. Overall, I'll give Crash Bandicoot 3 a 5 out of 5. It has its flaws, but it's still a glorious Crash game. I didn't like this one as much as 2, but a lot of that is personal taste. I love platformers, and Crash 3 is very experimental with its levels. The game fits with its themes, its humor, and just how goofy it is, and the levels in this one, I must admit, are actually more memorable because it is all over the place. Thanks everybody for watching. If you have any other ideas, things that you think that I missed that need to be said, or things that you think I got wrong, please put them in the comment section below. But I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and ring the bell to be notified of future videos. But until next time, wale tayo, nice.